Hello, and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 5, Episode number 8. Today is Sunday, February the 4th, 2018, Super Bowl Sunday, of course. My name is Graham Perro, and with me, as always, are Melissa Daphne and Tyler Fitch. Hope you're joining us after the Super Bowl. I didn't watch it. I'm not a big football fan. I don't think Melissa was paying much attention either, but sounds like Tyler was.
Yeah, we all waited for me. Thanks, everybody.
So congratulations to the Eagles for pulling that off. That's as much as I know about the game. The Eagles won it. Patriots lost. That's all I know. So I guess we'll move on to the lacrosse portion of the show. And didn't have any news this week in terms of big roster moves or nothing happened to the Rush Hulk this week, as far as I know. 4 games. Saskatchewan beat Colorado 13-10, and then they beat Vancouver 11-9 back in Saskatoon. Calgary came into Toronto and smushed the Rock 16-8, and Buffalo traveled down I-90 towards Rochester and beat them 16-14. So I guess we will get right into the awesome and not awesome parts of the show. So Melissa started last week. Tyler, how about you start this week?
Sure. My first awesome will be the Rush on both nights. Really impressive to watch them play. They were in the only game on Friday night and the only game I cared about on Saturday night. So I watched them twice there. Mark Matthews is just continually phenomenal, and I continue to hate the Rabel for Iannucci and Matthews trade, or Rabel and Matthews for Iannucci trade. But yeah, they put up a stat during the game that since he joined the team, they've won the West every single year. They're on pace to do it, or on course to do it again. It's incredible to watch him, and makes the whole team great because you can't focus anywhere. They're trio of righty forwards. I think it's actually a very, very tough battle. If you look at McIntosh, Church, and why am I blanking on the third one? I was all ready for this. Going against
Chatler.
What's that?
Chatler. It's a piece of lefty, isn't he?
Yeah, no, it's not Chatler. Anyways, but I was thinking going against Toronto with Schreiber, Hellier, and Hickey to figure out who has the best trio of righties is really close. Maybe I should give Toronto the edge on that one. But when I look at the stealth, they have Reese Dutch and McCready, who forces the action himself, and then everybody else is like kind of filling in. But there's no dominant group. Back when the stealth won their title, it was Reese, Dutch, Jeff Zwicky, and Luke Wiles. Like, that's a trio of forwards that they all will score when they get their time in room. They all can dodge and create their own shots. They were the group, and now the Rush have that, and they're young. They're gonna. I don't know if they'll have them for a while because the expansion's coming, but right now they can keep riding that wave, and it seems the Rock can. But watching the Rush play both nights and seeing how effective they are in their games, how calm they remain when the games are close, and how they can pull away in the end. Great team. They're my first awesome. I'm going to go up our order versus top to bottom and go with Melissa next.
All right. I definitely have to second the Rush. They looked really good. They looked like a much more mature team than you would expect, considering how much youth they actually have. But my specific awesome, if my screen will quit bouncing, my favorite awesome is Cupido's breakaway goal towards the end of the fourth. It really reminded me of the Nash Sims breakaways that the old Mammoth used to have, and it was just fun and exciting. And of course it sucked because the Rush turned around and scored not once but multiple times right after, but it was exciting and awesome for a moment and just felt like old times. So that was really awesome, and that was one thing I didn't understand and appreciate as much as I have in later years, is the impact that a goalie that can truly pass can have on a game. And so that was pretty good to see. What about you, Graham?
All right, my first one is going to be the Saskatchewan-Colorado game on Friday. Just in general, it was an awesome game. It was really exciting. Kirk and Ward were both really good, make some excellent saves. Stephen Keogh was outstanding, and I know Tyler posted a couple things on Twitter about Keogh and how he's been a healthy scratch a couple of times or just out of the lineup, and he's not a Mark Matthews pull in 10 points a night kind of guy, but he's one of those spark plug kind of guys who can get his teammates fired up, score a couple of really nice goals here and there, take a lot of hits. He does it all in the offensive zone, and he's really exciting to watch. And yeah, he's one of those guys that even if he's not putting up the super huge numbers, you don't take him out of the lineup. So I'm kind of surprised that ever happens to him. But in any case, it looked like the Rush had a lead and they lost the lead late. That's 3 straight weeks they've done that. It wasn't as big a lead as the previous couple of weeks. But as you said, Tyler, they just remained calm and just said, okay, well, we lost the lead. We'll just have to get it back again. And they did, like 10 seconds later. It's one of those things where in some teams you see them do that, especially for the 3rd straight week. And they just said, oh my God, I can't believe we've done this again. But they didn't, they kept their cool and didn't panic and pulled out the win. And so kudos to the Rush for doing that, and just an excellent game all around. Tyler, what do you got?
Sure. I'm going to quickly touch back on my last point and say, Curtis Knight, I apologize. You are the 3rd righty that I forgot to mention for the Rush there. Okay, on to my actual next awesome, Calgary. Calgary in their effort going into Toronto. They were a 1-win team. They had very few people believing in them outside of themselves. Yet they went in and took a team that had been averaging over 20 goals a game for the last 4 games and battled for the first 3 quarters and then just turned it on in the 4th and got themselves an impressive road win. So you're looking and go, well, they're out of it. They got 1 win. They're just flailing around with the stealth, but there they go on the road, and they show that any night you can do the right things and put up a big effort like that. Christian Del Bianco and specifically, I think you said last week, Graham, he's got his junior A look, like where he was completely dominant, and he's getting more minutes to get more comfortable on the bigger goals and the bigger shooters. And it was an impressive thing to hold the Rock to just 8 goals, considering where they had been putting up 20 plus. So the Roughnecks, I despise them, but they're an awesome this week. So good for them. Melissa, how about you?
Yeah, the Roughnecks did look really good. My next awesome, I'm going to go with Logan Schuss. He just was all over the place. It's just the scoring machine this weekend. So he kept the game very exciting. I was very impressed with the stealth overall, which I'm sure we're going to hear about from Tyler as well. It was one of those things, we've kind of written off the stealth, and they're starting to show us that no, it's still too early. They're going to be dangerous probably the second half. So especially Schuss, he definitely was very dangerous this game. So I think that was a much closer game than Edmonton had expected. So that's my next awesome. What about you, Graham?
All right. I guess I'll basically reiterate what Tyler just said. And my next awesome was going to be Christian Del Bianco, who was just outstanding against the Rock on Saturday. He's not a big guy. He looks pretty small. I managed to look up how big he is, and he looks like one of the smaller goaltenders in the leagues, particularly next to guys like Frank Giuliano and Nick Rose. He is 5'10" and 189. I mean, I'm 5'10" and 175, so he's not. I mean, he's my size, which, of course, for people listening to the podcast is totally meaningless. But in any case, he's not that big a guy, but very athletic, very quick. He can be aggressive. He likes to leave his crease with the ball, and I mean, he's not a field goalie who runs up the field, but it almost seems like he wants to. but he's, like I said, very athletic. He was anticipating very well on Saturday night. He was reading the balls, reading the shots, reading the angles, and just allowing nothing. Every now and again, somebody would trick him with a screenshot and get one in. But a lot of the things that have been working really well for the Rock in the last 3 or 4 games were just not working at all. And that's mostly Del Bianco, but the Roughnecks defense in general, I thought, played a really good game as well. So that was my next awesome, was Mr. Del Bianco. Tyler, what's up?
My last kind of awesome, it's right in the middle, was my product placement from last week. I got my new Warp Stick. I went out and played for a couple hours yesterday, and it does all right. Not quite perfect. It's not like 5 stars, perfect stick, but I was very happy to have it. And so those Warrior Warps, I'm giving them a thumbs up, and say it's definitely a stick you can play with, and I highly recommend it. And I'll take a check. I'll just message me, Warrior, and we'll work this out. What do you got, Melissa?
I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Graham was saying. I thought we had some awesome goalie battles. Del Bianco is definitely on my list of he was playing awesome. But so are Ward and Kirk. They both let in a couple shots that, as the cliche announcers love to say, that they would have liked that one back. Drives me nuts. There was a lot of screenshots and just some really odd angles that the shooters were getting off. So there's a lot of those that I think even the best goalie would be hard-pressed to have stopped. So I just thought that all 3 of them were really good this weekend and made those games exciting. So that would be kind of my tail end, because Graham already hit mostly on Del Bianco, and we talk enough about Ward and Kirk. So there we go. What about you, Graham?
All right, my next one is kind of an awesome and a not awesome at the same time, and that is the Vancouver Stealth. Their last 4 games, ever since they got completely destroyed by Toronto, about a month and a half ago, they've been playing really well. That was kind of a wake-up call, and we all sort of wondered, I wonder if that's going to be the case. That's either going to be the death knell for their season, and they'll go 0 for the rest of the year, or more likely they'll pull things together and start playing much better, and they did. They've played really well. Unfortunately, they're only 1-3, so the awesome is how well they've turned things around and started playing really well. The not awesome is that they've still lost 3 of those 4 games. And at the end of the season, when you're counting who gets in the playoffs or not, you don't look at how well you played in those losses. You just lost. So that's kind of unfortunate for the Stealth. But it can still be a confidence boost this early in the season. They can say, yeah, we lost those games, but we played really well. If we play a little bit better, then we can start racking up the wins rather than the close losses. And there's still 2/3 of the season left. There's lots of time. And like has been said a number of times, they only have to beat 1 team to make the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, everybody's 0-0 and it starts over. So yeah, awesome and not awesome. Vancouver Stealth. Tyler, what's up?
I am all out of awesome, so I'm going to double check that Melissa is as well before I switch over. Getting a head nod. Okay, so here we go, not awesomes. My first not awesome is the Stealth only playing half a game. They were shut out in the first quarter and shut out in the fourth quarter of that game against the Rush. And there's no situation where teams are going to score in 2 of 4 quarters and expect to win games. They might win games through sheer happenstance and luck, but that's not a path to success. I think there is a silver lining, like Graham said, around the awesome side of the Stealth, where they're close. Like, they don't have to make wholesale changes, but it's just not quite working. And they come out slow. Like, first quarter, they're so in a negative scoring differential in the first quarter, and then like, all right, they know this. We talked about it last week. So what should they do? Come out ready to play this week? And they didn't. They come out flat. They don't get a goal themselves in the first quarter. So it bums me out. Like, I don't know what I would change. And Wish I could just pinpoint something and say, "Oh, that's the problem," but I don't know what it is, and I can't see it myself. I know they're trying to see it, but it's frustrating to see the team play half a game and kind of be close against the top team in the West. If they played a whole game, they should beat them. And they didn't. Melissa, how are you doing for not awesomes?
So my first awesome, or not awesome, I should say. We are going to go with the Mammoth defense the last 2 minutes of the game because it was a really back and forth game. And then all of a sudden, Edmonton, sorry, Graham, I caught it. The Saskatchewan
we need like a change jar or something. And then Melissa will put a quarter in the change jar every time this is Saskatchewan or Minnesota.
It's the change city.
And it's not just Melissa either.
Yeah, but I do have my little sticker, which I'm looking at to be like, don't forget. And I looked at it, and then I still said Edmonton. But anyway, okay. It's just the Saskatchewan rush play offense. I mean, they're way too talented. You cannot give them one-on-one opportunities with the goalie. And just to have, I think it was 3 goals, if memory serves me. I watched a lot of lacrosse today because, I didn't watch the Super Bowl. But it was like 3 goals in those 2 minutes, and all of a sudden the game was done. Whereas before it looked like it might go to overtime, and you just can't give them that kind of opportunity. So my thumbs down to the Mammoth defense the last 2 minutes, because I don't know if it was in their head that, hey, we just got to hang on. The rush playing some just keep away definitely influenced that, but it was frustrating to watch this very close game just kind of evaporate. So that would be my first not awesome is dang it. Mammoth defense. All right, what about you, Graham?
I only have one. I guess the previous one was the stealth, which are kind of not awesome, but the only real not awesome that I have is the Rock defense in the fourth quarter of the Calgary game on Saturday. And honestly, they weren't terrible. Despite the fact that Calgary scored 9 unanswered goals, it didn't look to me like they were really that bad, the defense. But some of the goals were Curtis Dixon type goals where nobody can stop them. And not every goal he scores is like that, but there's a lot that he'll see a gap between the goalie's arm and the goalpost, and the gap is the width of the ball, barely, and he'll hit it. And I mean, you can't really fault the goalie. You may be able to fault the defense for giving him the look, but he's Curtis Dixon, so there's only so much you can do. Dane Dobbie scored a couple from the weirdest angles. It's like he was directly next to the net, and he managed to sort of reach out forward and shoot from there, and it managed to get by Rose. So a couple of those were kind of unexpected, I guess. But yeah, I can't point to any one thing that the Rock defense weren't doing well. But when you give up 9 goals in a row, something's going wrong. And Nick Rose was good up until then, and then it seemed that maybe it was just the fact that, okay, we're now down by 6 or 7 goals and we only have 5 minutes left. We're going to lose this game. So, maybe they just sort of gave up at that point, and that's kind of disappointing, especially considering the offense that they've had in the past 4 games. But at the same time, okay, we see who's in the other net, and Del Bianco is having the night of his career, and we're just not going to score on him. So if we allow 1 more goal or 5 more goals, it really doesn't make a lot of difference. So maybe that was part of it. They kind of figured the whole fourth quarter was garbage time anyway, so maybe that was it. But in any case, from going from a 8-7 Toronto lead to a 16-8 final in 20 minutes, that's definitely not awesome. Tyler, do you have any left?
Yeah, I've got one more. And feel free to chime in on this one because I don't know where this is going to go. But I have a theory, or a question: at what point do the Stealth just become lovable losers? It's like, well, that's our team in BC. Like they're like the best of our local players, but they can't ever catch a break. They just like nothing quite falls in for them, and keep having losing seasons, but we love them anyways, right? Like, they're our local team. And this year, I realized, well, people are going to stealth games. They're sticking around through the entire stealth game, regardless of the outcome, because it's the local team. And that's great. I don't want them to be lovable losers, but I just want them to keep playing. There's never really been, I think the last time I thought about this, maybe we like the Philadelphia Wings. And the last few years when they were kind of very heavily American based, and there wasn't an expectation that they were going to win a lot of games. But their core fans kept going. People love playing against them because of the history of the team. And you still liked them. Like, they had, like, you still say, well, we had that year Nooch scored all the goals. So we had Jeff Snyder as like the most intimidating player in the league for a few years. And it's a great thing to hang their hat on, regardless of their stats or not the stats, but their record. And maybe the Stealth are like, well, like last year we had Corey Small. Like, he was one of the top scorers in the league as MVP candidate. Like, we made the playoffs and that was great. But the reality is we were a sub 500 team and they're on that course again. And do we still love them? So I don't know what to make of the team right now and their constant futility. And does it just wear them down to the point where, like, well, we still get to play? Can't have that attitude as a pro, but something's happening where they just not winning games, but people still going to cheer for them.
Sure, the Stealth going to become the Cubs or the Clippers or something of the NLL.
Clippers, yeah, Cleveland Browns. There's just teams that just.
Now the Cubs and the Clippers have had a lot of success in the last couple of years.
No, Clippers. They made the playoffs a little bit, but no, we can take the Cubs off the list, and I'm happy about that because I was a Cubs fan because they got their title. But it's that idea. And if they're a newer fan of the league and you didn't realize that every year before, or 3 of the 4 years before they moved to Langley, they were in the finals. Then if you just know them from Langley, like, well, they're our team, and we realize now they're not great. Well, I wish they were great all the time. And I've seen that high level of performance, and I miss it. But if you don't know any better, people just enjoy the games, and maybe that's what they're doing now. I can't tell. Do you have either you have thoughts on that subject about the team kind of sliding down and you say, screw it, this is how it is for now?
I don't know. I see the South being late bloomers too often to be writing them off. I mean, yeah, they've squeaked into the playoffs a little bit, but that happens when we have so few teams. I mean, the Mammoth have done it too. In fact, I feel like that's when the rule was instituted, when they were really, really bad one year and somehow got into the playoffs. And so they were like, no, it shouldn't be this way. But yeah, I think the South are one of those teams you can't fully write off. They just take a little longer to get going. But they've been very dangerous in some of the second halves of the seasons. And a few of the years that you even mentioned where they were in the finals, they definitely didn't start off strong. So I wouldn't write them off. I certainly wouldn't compare them to the Cleveland Browns, who've never even been to the final game. So we'll throw that out there.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't write them off. Did you have anything to add on that point, Graham, before I do my not awesome?
No, I think that about covers it. Like you said, if they have a really strong second half, they can certainly squeak into the playoffs. And we've seen teams under 500 in the playoffs in this league a fair bit. I'm pretty sure the Minnesota Swarm were 5-11 one year and still made the playoffs. The Nighthawks won the championship after a sub 500 season.
Yep.
So yeah, it's. I mean, it's like the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL a few years ago, just barely squeaked into the playoffs and managed to make the finals and almost won the cup, actually. So I mean, it's cliche, but once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. And again, in the West, as long as you beat one other team, you're in. So, so yeah, Melissa, what's next?
So my not awesome is also kind of a question. I feel like there were a whole lot more 5-minute penalties this weekend than in any other previous game that I can recall, because it seems like not just one, but all this weekend's games had several 5-minute penalties. And it made me and my husband both wonder, are they cracking down? Did they tell the refs to be a little more harsh? Or did it just feel that way? Or You know, because a few of them didn't look as serious as what they were. A couple looked like, you know, a little acting going on. But of course, some of it's in the spur of the moment. But it seemed unusual to me. It just seemed like there was a lot more of it than we would normally see. But maybe it was just perception. What do you think?
As a stealth fan, I think the one called on Tyson Rowe was terrible in the rush game, where they gave him an elbowing major on Ryan Keenan. And then in the Mammoth game, you don't typically see it, but they called spearing on Adam Jones, which is basically taking your stick and taking the butt end of it and spearing somebody, which happens a lot when people are kind of jostling for position, but they actually, it was like blatant and called for 5 minutes. You don't see that one called very often. So may have been more.
That one didn't look like a spearing to me. It looked like he was kind of messing around and just cupped him under the chin. It didn't look that serious when they replayed it. It looked a little acting, but it looked like he just kind of, haha, you know, like it didn't look bad. Certainly not 5 minutes spearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned that in my blog today about the Rock game, that it looked like he basically took the head of the stick, like you said, and put it under the guy's chin and kind of lifted up like that. And was it intent to injure? No. Was it really a 5-minute penalty? Probably not. I was okay with the call, despite the fact that it was against a player on my team, just because I don't like to see a stick anywhere near anybody's throat. And whether you're goofing around or not, don't be doing that. So yeah, that was kind of a borderline 5-minute call. And I did look up the numbers in each of the games, and there was one 5-minute major in each game. So there weren't multiple, but one per game is probably still higher than what we'd normally see.
And maybe I just felt like more since I spent the entire day watching lacrosse games. So maybe I just felt that way. But yeah, I mean, otherwise my only not awesomes are my usual. The video quality of the stealth rush game was definitely lackluster, was grainy. And then we switched over to the Bandits Nighthawks game, and the in-game audio was really silent. And so you turned it up, and then it went to commercial, and it was really loud, and you're just like, holy cow. So it'd just be nice if they could get the stuff figured out. Kind of tired of scrambling for that remote control. The dogs even jumped at one point. So yeah. That's all I have. So
we still got Graham? No.
I'm all done with mine. You have any more?
The new play-by-play guy in Edmonton. I don't know. I think it's because of the Twitter Game of the Week. They shipped Brian Shanahan over from Toronto.
There's a quarter in the bucket for Tyler as well after saying Edmonton.
Yeah. For the rush. Since it's, I guess, the Twitter Game of the Week. They brought in a new guy who couldn't even pronounce Mark Gardonio's name. He's like, oh boy. And then Shanahan's like, Gardonio. It's like, come on. Like, please. Like, we now know that you're the new guy, Mr. Play-by-Play. But I'm glad they're getting fresh voices. Something along those lines. More people are exposed to it is better. But there is a pronunciation guide available to those that need it from Mr. Graham Perot.
That's Perot.
Yeah, sorry. Perot. But no more not awesomes for me.
All right, then we will move on to our predictions from last week. And how did we do? I was 3-1, getting, of course, the Toronto game wrong. Actually, we all got the Toronto game wrong. Tyler also picked Colorado over the Rush, and Melissa picked Rochester over Buffalo. So you guys were both 2-2. That puts the the current standings for the season. Melissa is at 20-11. I'm right behind at 19-12, and Tyler is not far back at 15-16.
You're a lot closer than I like, though, Graham. I liked my little cushion.
Well, there's 6 games this week, so a lot of ground can be made up or lost in this weekend. So, Melissa, since you're still in first place, you get to go first.
Well, and I don't think there's going to be much ground made because our picks are looking very similar. But I think I'm going to go with the Bandits. I think the fact that New England didn't play and the Bandits were actually playing relatively well. There were some fluke calls that were kind of weird. So there's that. I still don't think Bouquet is really a starter in net. Some of the mistakes he made, you could just tell they were kind of rookie mistakes, even though it's not his rookie season. It is his rookie as a starter. And so I think New England has struggled enough, but them coming off of a bye week might just give that to Buffalo. I'm going to go with Georgia, though. The Swarm over the Bandits the next night. I think Buffalo's probably going to be tired. Georgia's coming in fresh. So you have that. Toronto at Rochester. I'm going to go with Toronto, even though they definitely struggled this week. Colorado and Calgary was a much harder choice. I'm going to go with Colorado, and a big part of that is for whatever reason, and I can't say why, because most of these games between these two teams are 1-point games, maybe 2, and a lot of them overtime. So they're always on the edge of your seat. But Colorado really likes to win in Calgary. For some reason, they just seem to win more often in Calgary against Calgary than they do here. So if it was here, I would go with Calgary. If it's there, I'm going with Colorado. So hopefully that streak will hold. With the Rush and Stealth, I'm going to go with Rush. Stealth are showing a lot of potential, but Rush, we know they're playing solid, so it's hard to go with that underdog right now. And then Rochester going down to Georgia. I'm actually going to go with Georgia again. I think, Georgia hasn't been looking that great this season either, so that might just be because I tend to like the Swarm a little bit better than I do the Nighthawks. What about you, Tyler?
Sure. The first game there, Buffalo at New England. Like you said, Bouquet and kind of Buffalo are hot and cold, and they were hot last weekend. So I'm going to go with them being cold this weekend and pick New England to win. Then Georgia goes to Buffalo. Kind of hard to pick Buffalo to go 0-2 in a weekend, but Georgia, they haven't been great this year. But I feel like they had their slow start. They had a bye week. They're going to come in focused and take advantage of Buffalo and get a win there. Toronto at Rochester. I like Toronto. I think the 8-goal performance was abnormal, and they will come out and play their typical ball control, dominant sense, game control, and beat Rochester. Colorado, Calgary, definitely my hardest pick of the week for all the reasons you described, Melissa. Colorado, I guess, hasn't played a road game in 6 weeks. They had a long homestand, so maybe they forgot how to travel on the road. Calgary may have gained a lot of confidence from their run at the end of the Toronto game. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Calgary to win that game. I think it'll be a close battle and fun to watch. My favorite game of the week, Saskatchewan at Vancouver. Curtis Hodgson jersey retirement night. Big event, which the Rush will come in and beat the Stealth at. I think it'll be another close game. The Stealth just continue to be close games, but then they haven't shown that they're going to win those close games. So could hopefully be a great battle. But I think either whether it's close or whether it's a blowout, both situations would favor the Rush when it happens. Finally, Rochester at Georgia. Rochester, let's see, they're both traveling. Maybe they'll be on the same flight, but they're like Georgia's coming down from Buffalo. Rochester's coming from Rochester to get down to Georgia. But Georgia's a little more used to playing on Sunday afternoons. So I think that's going to be their one advantage, plus they're at home. So I'll pick the Swarm to beat Rochester. Graham, what do you got?
All right. Looks like my picks are actually all exactly the same as Tyler's now. Let's look at it. So I'm going to go for New England over Buffalo in the first game. This one was tough, actually, because I Buffalo just played a pretty tough game against Rochester, scored 16 goals, but allowed 14. Bouquet's not looking like the solid number one starter that the Bandits were hoping for. He's had a couple of really good games and a couple of really not so good games at all. The fact that they're on the road and Bouquet's been much better at home than on the road. I'm going to go for New England in that one. Georgia and Buffalo. Last year this would have been a no-brainer, regardless how well Buffalo was doing, because Georgia was just killing everybody. This year, not so much, but I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. At some point, Georgia's going to just put it all together and suddenly be the Georgia that we saw last year. And the question is, how late in the season is that going to happen? And I don't know if I'm predicting this weekend will be it, but I'm actually picking Georgia to win both games this weekend. Toronto-Rochester, yeah, I agree with Tyler. I think the game against Calgary was kind of a one-off, and I don't know if we'll see 20 goals again, but I think we'll see Toronto's offense playing much better. Not that Matt Vince is a pushover by any stretch, but I'm going to call for the Rock to get back into the winning column there. Colorado, Calgary. I have some bad news for you, Melissa. I looked up the numbers, and Colorado is actually Calgary is 12-10 lifetime against the Mammoth in Calgary in the regular season, and 4-0 in the playoffs. So,
but yeah, we're not talking about playoffs. I already know Colorado loses
playoffs
all
are different things altogether. But yeah, so Calgary's 12-10 against Colorado in Calgary. They are 7-11. So each team definitely has a home floor advantage in that matchup.
Not by much, though.
Now, that doesn't say how close the games are. I can look that up separately, but it wouldn't surprise me if the games are pretty close. Yeah, it looks, well, the home win differential is like 2.5. So yeah, they don't win by much. So it looks like they're going to be close games. So I think I'm going to go for Calgary in that one. I think they've got a lot of confidence coming off the Toronto game. And if Mr. Del Bianco plays the same way as he did in Toronto, that can only bode well for the Roughnecks. Saskatchewan, Vancouver. It's kind of too bad, as I was talking about earlier, the fact that Vancouver's playing really well but still losing is now, even if they play better than they have in the last 3-4 games, they're still facing the Rush, so they have to step it up even more than that. So even if Vancouver plays, possibly their best game of the season, they're still facing the Saskatchewan Rush, and so I'm going for the Rush there. And as I said before, I'm going for Georgia for the second game as well. Over the Nighthawks. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if this is the weekend that Georgia breaks out or they just play well, but not the same level as last year. But I still going to call a Poulin over Vince in that last game. And that will about do it, unless you guys have anything else that you want to add before we go.
Not for I.
All right. Okay, so that will do it. We got lots of games to watch this weekend, or this upcoming weekend. So enjoy those, and we'll see you back here. So this has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.